Well, Jesse Schell, welcome. And thank you.
Sure.
Jesse, you're quite a rock star, I think, in the gamification field. A lot of people credit you with getting the whole field off the ground with a speech you gave 2 years ago at DICE. And I think yesterday at the conference you were musing as to why things seem to have coalesced around gamification at this time. You're saying you've been talking about it for a long time, but only till recently people started to sort of like care and gather around this space. Mm-hmm. So tell us why you think that is.
Well, I think it's a number of things sort of coalescing simultaneously. We've seen a number of unexpected things enter into our lives. I don't think people saw Facebook coming. They didn't really see how that was going to be integrated into so many people's lives so fast in such a central way. So we had that happen. At the same time, we had the rise of games on Facebook, which even Facebook didn't see coming, that would be the primary method of revenue generation for them. They didn't see that happening at all. And the whole game industry has had this explosion of sort of system of downloads. And then we've had the whole notion of free-to-play games, which have happened, which have changed the nature of game design and made people rethink their motivational structures in games. And that, combined with everyone having a mobile phone, so you can kind of have these things with you, has made people see that, wow, there's a lot of possibilities here that we haven't really explored. And it's really sort of brought attention to the fact that we don't understand human motivation and we don't understand the human experience of pleasure very well. And so all those things have sort of come together into what people are now commonly calling gamification.
So what do we know now about gamification? What do we not know? What are areas that we should be studying at this point?
Well, one of the things I guess that I'm sort of taking away from this conference is that a lot of people have expressed dissatisfaction just in terms of the very term, and is this really representative, or what are we really talking about? And one of the things, talking to Sebastian Dieterding, that he suggests, and I've come to totally agree, is that the phrase gamification is really pointing at something broader. It's really pointing at the notion of motivational design, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to design experiences where people feel motivated to do certain things for certain reasons. And so I think some of the most important work in this area that's going to start to happen is going to be bringing in the psychology of motivation into design and doing that in a more constructive way.
And what are you yourself researching at this point? What are the big questions for you?
So for me, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand the nature of human pleasure. What it is is it possible to come up with a system of understanding and categorizing and modeling the things that people enjoy doing?
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the elements? I think you've talked about this before in terms of what constitutes play.
Sure. So there's a lot of elements in it. It's complicated. The things that people enjoy are not simple. I mean, you have all your sort of primal pleasures, but then there's a complex set of pleasures all around the nature of goal setting and goal attainment. And then you combine that with just so many things, the various aesthetic pleasures, from art and music, etc. And then you blend that in with things that are a little harder to put a finger on, like pride in accomplishment and wonder. And I'm trying to develop frameworks that are comprehensive enough to be able to hold all of these things and to kind of show ways that they fit together, so that people who are designing any kind of experience can kind of have better tools for designing experiences that are pleasurable, because that's the big change that's happening in society right now. I mean, we've moved from a period of, we create things so that we can survive, to a period where we create things so that they can make us more efficient and effective, to a new period where we are trying to create things that we actually enjoy.
Right. So how much work have psychologists done for us in this field already? I would imagine that there has been quite a bit of study in terms of motivation and what gives us pleasure. How much has been done?
It's very interesting. There has been significant work in the area of motivation. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that motivation and pleasure, while connected, are not the same things. Mm-hmm. Right. And pleasure is a more difficult thing for a psychologist to study because it's very difficult to measure. Motivation is easy. It's easier to measure because you can see, did someone do this or not?
There's an output.
Right. Mm-hmm. How much did you enjoy that banana you just ate is a much more difficult thing for anyone, for someone to measure. But so they've had more focus in the motivational area, particularly the Richard Ryan. Many people have collaborated with him. Scott Rigby's here, for example, who's done a lot of work on connecting Ryan's theories into games. So there's been some work there. But my old joke is that if psychologists had all the answers for us about what made things pleasurable, they would throw better parties.
That's for sure, right. Okay. So what are some of the threats to gamification? You hear a lot of cynicism about it.
Right. Well, I think there are a lot of people doing foolish things, without a doubt. Because the reason people are talking about it is because we don't understand it well. We don't understand well how small changes to systems in terms of giving feedback and giving accomplishments, which ones are the right ones that are really going to motivate people to care about whatever it is you're trying to get them to care about. We don't understand it very well. And as a result, you've got a lot of people experimenting. And so you're going to have a lot of people trying things that are going to bomb out and fail. And I think, like all new ideas, particularly ideas connected to technology, it's going through a hype curve, right? And probably the peak of the hype curve was after I gave that talk. The peak is when everyone's talking about how great it is, even though they have no idea what it is. And then people start to find out the realities of it, and everyone decides, this is a horrible thing, and we all hate it. And then eventually, you come to this sort of what they call the plateau of productivity on the hype curve. You come to this point where it's like, well, yeah, it's not good for everything, but there are places where these techniques make a lot of sense, and they can be quite helpful. So we're sort of, I think we're sort of in those early phases yet, where we haven't figured out what all is useful, and there are still people who are discovering it, and they're very excited, and there's people who've looked at it and are disgusted. And so it's balancing out.
And where do you come out in terms of what it is that we're talking about? I think we sort of talked around the issue of definition.
I think what people really are trying to talk about is the notion of motivational design. Mm-hmm. Even though they don't always use those phrases, when I press people about it, it really is what they're talking about. They're talking about how can I create a system where you care. You actually care more about completing certain tasks within the system, whether that system be trying to get you to fill out forms about car insurance or trying to get you to care about your own education or an exercise program, whatever it is. It's a system of is it possible for me to create a system so that you care more than if I didn't put that attention into it.
Great. Well, thank you.
Sure.